Hello, everybody. I intended to make this channel apolitical, focused on technical challenges to writing. That includes publishing, because after all, we all want to get our books out there on the shelves, don't we? Well, I had good intentions. I've already previously talked in these episodes about Elizabeth Gilbert's attempt at self-censorship, probably with the compliance of her publishers. I've talked also about the experience of a brilliant writer friend of mine, Robert Lipscomb, who was largely excluded from the traditional publishing world because he fell out with his agent and his publisher. Then there comes a spate of media posts about censorship and free speech. Of course, free speech is an issue those of us who post online are well aware of. It's a daily issue for us. So, I may as well go full in and tackle it, hadn't I? If you don't want to hear me get excited about free speech, this would be a place to say, have a nice one, bye. Good. You hung in there. Calls for books to be banned outright rose 38% in the United States in 2022. Over 2,000 titles were requested to be withdrawn from libraries, and most of them were about LGBTQ plus issues. But the list also included, for example, this book called The Bluest Eye, published in 1970 in the US by Holt, Reinhardt and Winston, written by Toni Morrison. The novel tells the story of a young African-American girl in the 1930s during the Great Depression, and she's growing up at that time, and this is her story. And it's about racism, and it contains scenes of violence and sex and sexual abuse. It's a serious book. It has literary merit, and it's been on the shelf for a very long time. Yet The Bluest Eye has been consistently challenged and banned in some libraries ever since it was published. Oh, by the way, Toni Morrison received the Nobel Prize for Literature in 1993 as a result of writing this book. Banning isn't the only way, however, that ideology and politics affects books. The left wants to change the content of books we all grew up with. Publisher Puffin wanted to edit Roald Dahl's books to, quote, remove offensive language. The proposal was branded absurd censorship by Sir Salman Rushdie, who, as you'll remember, was censored himself by a fatwa from the Iranians for his book, The Satanic Verses, and recently was badly injured as a continuation of these efforts to suppress what he had written about. Puffin backed down, but they only agreed to publish a classic edition of Roald Dahl's books. They still published a regular edition for young readers, rewritten to, quote, cater for the sensitivities of modern audiences. Apparently I wasn't sensitive enough when I read these as a child, but kids are different now. Dahl's books are not the only ones that can be damaged by publishing companies, only concerned with their DEI and ESG social ratings. And they worry about these, not because they care about inclusion or equality, but for the sake of profits. That has nothing to do with literature or ideas or the books that you and I want to read, write, and publish. Let me give an example in my current work. My next book is prequel to Gateway to Gandamak. It's titled Guardian of Kings. It's military history with a flavour of the clash of civilizations, cultures, races and religions. Boy, is that a mixture. It's set in the Islamic and Christian empires and kingdoms of the 11th century. The narrator, my protagonist, is a tough 11th century mercenary soldier. He talks about the execution of his family. He talks about Islam, Christianity, slavery, race, queerness as it was seen at the time, and different habits. He's a violent, damaged man, abused as a child, but redeemed through his travels and his understanding of races and people. Should I not speak with his voice? Indeed, not write about these things? I'll end with this. One of my favourite authors is George MacDonald Fraser. His Flashman books have been a source of learning and inspiration for me. In Guardian of Kings, my 11th century warrior travels to Ethiopia. So I've read what George MacDonald Fraser has said about Flash's adventures during the British invasion of Abyssinia, which is another name for Ethiopia. It was in ancient times called Habesh, but the British invaded in 1868 to rescue some people who had been kept hostage by one of the kings. Here's what I find in the book, just casually opening. One of the characters says, "Fact is, the common folk would like nothing better than to have us conquer the country and rule it. We'd give them peace from their endless civil wars, protect them from rebels and bandits and locusts and slavers, and maybe even relieve their poverty. Do you know that many are so poor they'll sell their wives and daughters even? They're priest-ridden too. Their kangaroo Christian church gets 2/3 of the peasantry's produce. Aye, 2/3. The kings and their chiefs get a cut of what's left. So there ain't too much left for the brigands to pinch, is there?" Well, what do you think about that? Should the brilliant and widely read Flashman series be banned because some of the characters in the book, speaking in the 19th century, in Victorian times, say things that nowadays we would be upset and triggered by? Should it be banned? Is that what free speech is all about? Anyway, that's it for today. I'll be back to this subject for sure, but enough for now. If you like this episode, please hit like, subscribe, check out my page on Medium, and I'm on Goodreads now as a verified author. So please check out my books. Thanks very much. See you next time.